today's session is hopefully no more than half an hour or so. We want to talk about ACT marketing automation. So this technology has been around for, I suppose, a while now. I don't know when they first introduced it, probably early last year, or perhaps the end of the year before. I don't know. Time flies when you're having lots of fun with ACT, and the uptake has been quite accelerated, really. And it's clear that a lot of organisations are finding real value in using ACT marketing automation, not just for marketing automation, but also to drive, excuse me a second, I'm just muting microphones so we don't get feedback, just to drive automated process within the business, so reducing manual process, duplication of effort, and just streamlining things. So we thought it was worth just talking through some of the values of ACT marketing automation. So that's what this is about. It's a whistle-stop tour, as said, and we can explore things afterwards at your leisure. But the topics I want to just talk loosely around to give you a sense of what's possible are four areas, really. So as a marketing campaign system, it's very easy to create rich liveried email templates within ACT marketing automation. I think more so than it ever has before, if you compare with the original legacy Swift page email technology, and then more recently what they called ACT marketing. So there have been a number of iterations, but I think with this one they've achieved a really easy to use, drag and drop, simple interface for configuring email templates that anybody can use. No special skills, no special tools. So I'll just give you a quick once over around that. If you're familiar with things like MailChimp, Constant Contact, iContact, Campaign Monitor, it's that kind of class of email template editor, which is great. The other thing that I just want to talk around briefly is the campaign structure, because AMA, or ACT marketing automation, allows you to broadcast a mass email, of course, as all these comparable systems do, but it also interacts with the ACT database. That's the most valuable thing about it. So we can use ACT to gather together people that we want to target as a group of contacts, or multiple groups of contacts, but we can draw in elements of data from the contact record to use for mail merge in the email template to personalize the communication, but also we can apply conditions based upon data characteristics within ACT contact records. So we could even set a campaign up to go to contacts within a group who meet other conditions based upon field values. It might be their status to you as a customer or a prospect. It might be the geographical location, or any other parameter that's maintained in an ACT contact field. So pretty capable stuff in terms of campaigns. There are a couple of other aspects to AMA, not directly related to sending emails. One of those is the monitoring of the consumption of assets. So that assumes that you might share with your audience things like YouTube videos or web pages or PDFs and such like. And historically, of course, you've always been able to send out a link to a YouTube video or send out a PDF, but the difficulty then has been measuring the extent to which people have consumed those assets. So if we sent a PDF, did people open it? If they opened it and it was a 5-page document, did they read it? How far did they get through it? If they clicked on a link to look at our YouTube video, did they watch the video? How much of it did they watch? So assets in AMA gives you some visibility of how effective that collateral has been, and to what extent it resonated with your audience, therefore empowering you to be more effective with the distribution of future assets. And the fourth area really is just a quick look at landing pages. We get more and more questions from people about integrating forms with ACT. So that might be web forms, inquiry forms, where people visit your website, fill in a form, and using that data to automatically create a record within the ACT database. Or it might be people who are already in your ACT database, and we're annotating their records, updating their records with information that you've collected in a form. So those are the areas that I wanted to loosely talk around to give you some sense of what's possible. So Without further ado, as they say, this is Act Premium Cloud. So I'm logged into Act in a browser, in this case, Google Chrome. And I've gone into the marketing automation system using the navigation menu on the left-hand side. And immediately I'm presented with a list of campaigns. So you can see here I've got this list view of campaigns, old campaigns, new campaigns. There's quite a few in here. In fact, there are pages of them. You can easily search to find a campaign that you want by using these search controls at the top of the screen. So, for example, if I want to find all active campaigns, I could type in active in the search status and click the contains button, and then I'm immediately presented with all active campaigns. So easy to find the campaigns that I'm looking for. Let's just click on the pen on the right hand side. I can then go in and see the details of each campaign, and we'll come on to talk about that in just a moment. But before we get into campaigns, let's think for a moment about templates. In the menu structure at the top of the screen, you can see across the top we've got the core areas of AMA that we can access. So campaigns, templates, landing pages, assets we've mentioned as well. So if I click on email templates, this again shows me a list. There are different views within AMA. I can see a list view of each template or a grid view. Of course, the advantage of a grid view is it gives me a thumbnail of each of the templates so I can quickly identify it. And of course, the list view exposes more information on a single screen. So just select the view of choice. Let's just click and see what one of these templates looks like. It's all drag and drop stuff. So again, these have been built with no special skills or tools. It's just a question of introducing your own livery. So your own imagery, font, text, hyperlinks, links to videos, action buttons, and so on and so forth. So this is a template that we'd already used previously, but let me show you the process very quickly of creating a new template. So if I go back to the top level view, and under the action button in the top right hand side, new template, and we're just going to start with a very simple structure, although there is a significant library of different styles and shapes of template for your pleasure. If these might be useful to give you some ideas about how you might build the templates, you can select any one of these pre-constructed templates and just replace the content with your own. But let's just start with a very basic blank template. I'll just call it Will123 because I'm very creative like that, and click save. So I've now created a new template. It's opening up that template for me to edit it. And because I've chosen blank template, there's virtually nothing in it. And I wanted to just show you that the template is built by manipulating the content of these three tabs on the right hand side. So first of all, if I click on the rows tab in the middle, you can see that the rows can be used to introduce into the template a structure to contain some content, so that this area at the top is a single row that will reach right across the full width of the template. So I'm going to drop that onto the panel, and then so I've got two of those now, and then a bit further down, this one here separates the template into two equal columns. So let's drag that in and drop that there as well. So I've got three blocks, if you like, or three rows in the template. The first two stretch the full width. The third one extends into or splits into two panels. Having introduced the rows, I go to the content tab and I can determine what I want to appear in each of those panels. So if I want an image in the top one, I just drop an image on there, text in the next one down, and drop a text placeholder, and perhaps in this split column here I want to show an image in the top of each one of those, and perhaps some text underneath each image that describes the image that's above it. So let's put another row in under there, full width, and in that particular row I'm going to have a video. And let's put another one in, another row underneath the video, and go back to the content, and in there I'm going to have an action button. So that's the structure of the template. So image, text, two side-by-side image placeholders with text beneath them, a video, and then an action button. So what I've got to do now is customize the content that goes in those areas. So let's start at the top. The first one here is an image, and as it says on the screen, I can either drag an image file onto that window from my desktop, or click on Browse, which takes me to my library. So the library is an area in the system to where I've uploaded images. So if the images are on my desktop, I can just browse to an image on my desktop and upload it into the system. Or in fact, there's a free photo library. So if I'm looking for an image that I don't have, I can click on free photos, and this allows you to access about 500,000 stock photos. So you can put in a search term. Let's say I was going to send out an email to a gardening community all about wheelbarrows. So I can type in wheelbarrow, and then all of a sudden there are pages and pages of images of wheelbarrows. I can select any one of those and introduce them. So these are all royalty-free images if you don't have your own images to use in every situation. But let's just use one that I've used before. So we'll pick this Act 1 at the top, insert the image into the template. And I can do the same with the placeholders a bit further down, the two columns. So let's drop in a couple of images down there as well from the library. Let's see. Doesn't quite look in the right place there, but it'll do for the purposes of this exercise. So let's put another one in. When you've introduced the images, you'll notice in a moment anyway, when I've shown you this bit, that what you can do is customize the way the images appear in that frame as well. So I don't really want this skyrocket to be quite so huge as it is. So if I click on the image, you'll notice that the content panel on the right hand side now exposes controls that I can apply to that image. And all this is fairly intuitive as you read down it, and each one of these sections kind of explains to you in an intuitive way what they do. So starting at the top, auto width. Auto width is enabled. So what that means is the image will expand to fill the space available to it. But if I want it to be a bit smaller than that, I can disable auto width, and then the slider becomes available and allows me to change the size that image takes up. So you can control the width, alignment, of course. Down here you can also choose to apply effects, which opens a very simple image editor. This is simple to the image editor in MailChimp and Constant Contact as well, if you use those tools. But there are tools I can use to resize the image. I can type in the pixels, or I can I could crop the image if I want to. Just a question of dragging around simple crop handles. I can apply text. I can overlay text on the image, so that quite a broad variety of different controls I can use to determine how the image, how the image will appear. In terms of the text, so you can just free type in text or copy and paste. You could use mail merge components if you like. So if I want to say hi Bob, or whatever the first name of the contact is, I can put the cursor where I want the mail merge field and then click on merge tags. And this just accesses all the contact fields in your system. So it will be the standard @contact fields, but also included here would be any custom fields that you've created in your database. So I'm just going to choose hi first name. How are things? Let's just type some text in here. Visit our website for more info. And of course I can put anchor text and hyperlinks on there. So if I want to put hyperlinks on visit our website, I can just highlight the anchor text, click on the link button above, and it will just allow me to put in a hyperlink to a website as well. And it adds an HTTPS. You can see that the hyperlink itself has changed to just the standard hyperlink color. But over here on the settings tab, if I want to, I can set a color across the template for hyperlinks. So for example, our corporate color is a green that I think, if I remember correctly, is something like 35AA35. This is a hexadecimal reference for the green, which is our green. And by the way, if you don't know what your hex references are, you can easily go to your website. Let's just go to our website here, Solutions for Accounting, And then if you use Google Chrome, you can install something like a color picker. You can download these free, just Google color picker in Chrome, and you can activate a color picker on the page, where what you can do is hover over elements on the page, and you'll see as I hover over some of the green text there at the very top of the screen, it shows me the green I'm hovering over, but also illuminates the RGB color, that's the 5516950, but importantly for email, the hexadecimal reference. So that particular green there is #37A932. So you just make a note of that color reference from your website, and then you can just type this in wherever you like in the template. So you can apply that as a font color. You could apply that as a background color. So if I click on this area here, row background color, I can type in hash, again mine was 35A, oops, 35A 35. Making a bad job of that. So, I don't know if it's transparent there, sorry. There it is. So you can apply the color to anything, to backgrounds, foregrounds, the background of a row, the background of a content area, some text, etc. I know I'm not creating something very pretty here, but I'm just trying to give you a sense of how easy it is to manipulate the template. So colors, pictures can change. You can include text. Hyperlinks can take on different styles and different structures. Maybe I want to include, let's put another text row in here, just beneath that one. Maybe I want to include some text that invites the recipient to contact us. Oops. Call us now. And I'm going to make that font using the controls above a bit bigger. And I'm going to put a hyperlink on there, but the hyperlink is not to go to a website. It could go to an email, so it could be email us now, and when the recipient clicks on it, it opens a new email in their account. Or it could be send us a text or call us. So if I say tell, type in our telephone number, I've got this big call us now button. And then what I want to do with that is organize it such that when a recipient clicks on that button, if they're using a mobile phone, it can just dial the number straight away on their mobile phone. But of course, that's not going to work if the recipient is reading the email on an Outlook on a desktop client or something of that nature. So what you can do with these controls is you can determine whether they always show if depending upon the device that the user is receiving it on. So down at the bottom of the control here on the right hand side of the content, I can choose to hide that on desktop. So what that means is if somebody's reading this email in Outlook, they won't see that call us now because it wouldn't do anything. But if they're reading it on a mobile phone, they would see the link, and they could click on the link and it would dial the number on their mobile phone. So there are a range of things that you can do within the template editor that control the way it looks, the way it appears based on the device that's being used to view it. Another example might be this large image at the top. What happens in Outlook, of course, is Outlook doesn't show images by default. So you might think it's not particularly a good idea to have a large image appear at the very top of my email if somebody's looking at it in Outlook. So I might choose to click on the image and suppress that email again if somebody's looking at it on a desktop. So you can choose different behaviors for different clients. If I want to see how things look, under the actions button in the top left hand corner, there is a preview mode which gives me a sense of how my pretty ugly template might appear in different devices. So this is on a full screen, or on the right hand side at the top, if I choose mobile, you can get a sense of how it looks on a mobile device. All these templates are responsive, so where I have two columns appearing side by side, it will take the right hand column and place it beneath the left hand column to make sure it's able to be viewed just by scrolling up and down with a thumb on a mobile device without having to scroll left and right. So it takes care of all that stuff for us. So I won't go too much more into detail with that, but again, I just wanted you to see that the controls to constrain and contain content within the template are really easy for you to use without a great deal of specialist skill or any external tools. Again, if I want to use a template I've created in a previous campaign rather than start from scratch, as you can see, I'm not particularly creative at all, but I can access any templates that I've used previously. So here's a list of those templates I might have used before. And if I can find the one I'm looking for, I can just import that template into this campaign and customize that template if I want to modify it to suit my current purpose. So a lot of flexibility with a template editor, very easy to use. In terms of the campaign structure then that I mentioned, we can either use let's just start a new campaign. We can either use an AMA campaign just simply to send out an email to an audience, which would be the people contained within a group, or we could use it to create a drip marketing structure that might contain a series of different email campaigns, perhaps, or other interactions, where each stage executes depending upon how recipients have responded to previous stages. Let me just give you an example of what that might look like, because I understand when I explained it there, it sounded quite complicated. So I'll create a new campaign called test. I'll select a group. So this is an ACT group of people that I might want to send this campaign to. I determine the from name and the sending email address for the email, and then let's create that campaign. So in its simplest form, a campaign is I press start, it sends out the email, and that's the end of it. But what if I wanted to send out the email and then wait to see how people interact with the email, because that would determine how I would then nurture the lead forward. So for example, if I send an email out and people open the email and click a link within the email, that suggests to me that there's some level of interest I'd want to follow up on. You know, if they've opened it and not just dismissed it out of hand without reading it, and then understood the context sufficiently to click on a link to want to learn more, I'm going to want to know about that. So what I'm going to do is allow it to send my initial email, but then after that, not finish. What I want to do is click on there and then insert an action after having sent the email. And that action in this case is going to be what we call a decision. So let's just click go on the decision. So the decision could be based on a number of different things. So what I'm doing with the decision is considering the previous email. Do I want to check to see whether the email was opened? And if somebody opened it, do this, or is it the reverse? If the system tells me that a recipient hasn't opened an email, maybe I want the system to automatically send it again after a few days. If I want to be more specific about interaction, maybe I want to monitor where the email has been clicked in some way, and if it has, that's enough to make me consider that a follow-up is warranted. Or it might be the case that within my email there were various links, each one going to a different set of content. So let's say it was our business and we were sending out a newsletter. The original email might have had an article about ACT CRM. There might have been a separate article about Sage accounting software that we resell. So we might wait to see which link the recipient clicked on. So if a recipient opens the email and clicks on the link about ACT, maybe we send we create an activity within the ACT system for Nicola to follow that up as a CRM lead. If somebody clicks on a link that takes them to an article all about Sage 50 accounts, maybe we then send an email to Kathy in our sales admin team to instruct her to follow up on that lead. So we can cause a different reaction to occur depending upon the individual link that people have clicked on. So if I select the previous email, it will show me a list of all the hyperlinks that it can find within that email, and then I can determine what to do if somebody's clicked on them, if that makes sense. So let's just go back and look at how that appears now. So I send the original email, wait one day. I might want to extend that period and think, well, sometimes people don't open the email immediately. What I'll do is I'll get the thing to wait 3 days, So 3 days after I've sent the original email, the decision is asked, did they click on that particular link or did they not? So if the answer to that is yes, I don't want the system just to end at that point. I want to schedule, it might be a follow-up email, a subsequent email with more detail about the topic that they clicked on, or it might be, as mentioned, an email to one of my team, or it might be the creation of an activity. So let me just show you how you would do that. So at the moment, if somebody clicks on that link, it goes to an end. I want to change that, so click on end, and I choose to change the action type, and I want it to do something else. So call would be, it creates an activity of type call for an act user to follow up on. Decision, it can query further information. Email, it sends a follow-up email. Actions would be things like send an email internally to one of my people. I could have it create an opportunity in the database, over a variety of other things. Incidentally, there is a possibility to add a further decision, and a decision could be based on not just how people interacted with the email, but conditions within the database. So I could in fact say add another decision at this stage. So if they have clicked on a particular link that expresses an interest in Sage 50, I then want to ask another question to determine, are they an existing customer or are they perhaps a new prospect? Because that might determine how I want to handle the inquiry or the opportunity. So the decision that I could add in at that stage is not referencing whether they opened or clicked an email, but a column value within ACT. So it might be that I've got an ID status field, which is quite typical in most people's database, that tells us what the status of that contact is. So if the ID status is customer, I want to do one thing, but if it's prospect, I want to do another thing, and so on and so forth. So hopefully that gives you some sense that this campaign structure could be a very simple broadcast, or it could be just a complicated structure that automates marketing process. Not only marketing process though, if you think about the logic of it, because what you could also do is you might have within your database fields that record information about contract periods, for example. So if we were selling a warranty where we re-invoiced it on an annual basis, perhaps there's an ACT field with a renewal date. We can use a campaign to monitor a renewal date field, and where that's forthcoming, we could then trigger a campaign to send a renewal notification to the client, or we could trigger a notification internally to one of our own staff to follow up on that. So pretty capable in terms of the things that you can do with campaigns. The other two areas I wanted to briefly touch on then were assets and landing pages. So as mentioned, assets allows you to distribute content. Here's a group of assets I created earlier to your audience. Now you might send out YouTube video links anyway. You might send out PDFs as well, for example. But as mentioned, the problem there is you've no way of knowing how people have got on with that PDF. If you send a link to a PDF, I can see if somebody's clicked on a link in the email to download the PDF, but I don't know then whether they read it or how far through it they got. And assets gives you that visibility. So here's an example of an asset that I've added that is a PDF. And in the properties here, what we've chosen to do is, as well as determine what the PDF is, we can also control its behaviors and how people are allowed to interact with the PDF. So in this particular case, when somebody's viewing it, we also allow them to save that PDF to their local machine, although that doesn't have to be the case. What we can also do is capture information from the person that's consuming the asset as they do so. So let's say this is something on our website. We want to allow people to read the PDF, but we want to get something from them in return. Well, typically on our website, we've had a gated access to our content if it's downloadable. So we've said, click here to download a brochure. And as soon as they click here, they're presented with a form that asks them for information, which is a little bit off-putting often because they haven't seen the information yet. They don't know whether it's going to be of any value to them. And now they're being asked to provide information before they do so, which is quite off-putting. Well, what we can do with assets is pop a form to ask them for information, but not straight away. So we might say by the time they've got to page 3 in this PDF, they're going to be sufficiently interested such that if we then present them with a form, there's a greater probability that they might give us that information. So if we go to the lead form tab in this example, I've decided that what's going to happen here is when they get to page number 3, it's going to pop a form and ask them for more information. It might not be a page number, it might be time. You might say when they've been reading the thing for more than 10 seconds, pop a form to ask them for further information. When that form appears, you can allow them to just dismiss that form and carry on reading if you want to, or you can structure it so that if they don't then complete the form, they're denied access to the remainder of the PDF. So quite a lot of controls you can place around that. Let me just show you what that looks like. So I'll click on a link to show this PDF as an example. So as I said, this is just a simple PDF example. It's actually a 22-page PDF, and I triggered the asset to I set the asset to trigger a form on page 3. So I start to read down. It's all very good, fantastic. This is wonderful stuff. But by the time I get to page 3, there's the form. So the user can't go any further until they populate this information. So type in something random there. You can control all this messaging on the form, what it says, GDPR checkboxes, etc. So that's all that's all controllable within the customization. When they submit the form, of course, they can carry on consuming. Now that form, by the way, could be a simple email address, or it could be a more comprehensive form asking you for further information. On completion of the form like that, it will send you as the ACT user an email with the details of the form completion, and it also creates a history in the database as well. Another example might be a YouTube video. So I think this one might be just a quick example of a YouTube video. I set up something similar. I think I set it to play the video for a few seconds and then launch it. This goes for 3 or 4 seconds. Same sort of thing applies. Form pops. Again, you can customize the way the form looks, what information is requested, whether they can dismiss the form and carry on. So that's, I think, really quite useful and gives you visibility of how people are interacting with the asset. As mentioned, the system will tend to send you emails each time someone, if you want it to anyway. You can just see the statistics within the database, or you can have it send asset completion emails each time somebody consumes an asset. It can tell you who they are, what time they started looking at it, what page they got to, how long they spent on it, etc. So again, rich information that you can use to really understand the quality of enquiries and take them forward to the next step. The other area I wanted to mention briefly was landing pages, and we're seeing a lot of people use landing pages now to integrate websites with forms, with their ACT database. So to capture new contacts in the database or update contacts they've already got. As you would imagine, there's a simple way of building this as well. You can create the landing page livery using the template editor that we looked at previously. Let's just look at an example again. And the questions you can build up through the user interface in quite a user intuitive and simple way. So when you're building it, let me just show you what the form looks like, by the way, before I show you the question editor, because you can see the output. It's better. I think it's easier if you see the output first. So this form, fairly simple form with a bunch of questions, and I think it was advertising an event when it comes up. So you can see the livery is just built in the template editor. The forms appear down here. So I've asked for name, company, email address. We're inviting people to an event so they can choose the venue, the date they want to apply, a series of questions. Back in the editor, you can see these are the forms and how they're mapped in the database. So when you create a field for the form, you can give it a name, you can give it a default value, you can decide whether it's mandatory or not. You can determine the way it appears, the width, the height, etc. And also you can map it to an ACT field so that when the form is completed, that field within the ACT database is automatically updated. So where are we going? So in this particular form, I started to fill it in. It's remembered the details I put in the last time I completed the form. So name, company, you can see the asterisks are the mandatory fields. There's a narrative panel here, lots of different field type structures as well, drop down lists, check boxes, sliders. You can introduce a capture component as well if you're tired of getting machine completed forms. So when the person completes the form, you can also determine the landing page that they're taken to. And of course, that sends me an email with the form completion details, and also creates a history in the ACT database as well. So for example, if I quickly go and look at a contact record, just to give you a sense of what that looks like if I go to my record where I know there's lots of information, there are a couple of tabs of interest as far as AMA is concerned. Quite a lot of stuff goes in the history tab, so you can see web activities, form completions, histories are created there. So if somebody looks at an asset, it creates a history, tells me how long they've been looking at the YouTube video or the PDF, etc. And if forms are completed, histories are created. You've also got the campaign results tab as well, by the way, just reflecting back on email marketing. And each time you send that person an email, it will create an entry in here with the date and time of the email, the name of the campaign, the subject line, the number of times they opened it, the number of times they clicked on a link, and of course the date of the last open and click, which link they clicked on, etc. If those people opted out, that's recorded in here as well. So the beauty of all this being embedded within ACT is the full integration. All these interactions with your email are reported back into ACT, so I can organize follow-up activity within the system. So for example, if I wanted to gather together all the people who've clicked on a link within a particular marketing email that I sent them, I can just use an advanced query in ACT to do that by querying campaign results. I can say clicks greater than none, let's say, where the campaign name contains event. So you can build up a quite a rich, granular structure. So let's just run that query. I don't want to save it. So that the query itself doesn't have to have one component. It could have multiple different components. So I could say, give me a list of all the people that opened an email and clicked on a link who are customers where the postcode begins with NG or DE, for whom the account manager is Nicola Gibson, etc., etc. So I can be very specific in terms of gathering together people based on a combination of how they've interacted with my assets, my emails, etc., my forms, and also combining the data that we hold against them in the database and structure a response as a consequence thereof. So that's a whistle-stop tour of ACT Marketing Automation. I hope you found that useful. I've not got into too much detail, and I know we've quickly flown through some of the features, but just wanted to give you a sense of what's possible. So please, if there is something that you want to explore further with us, do get in touch. Give us a call or drop us an email, either myself or Nicola. Both very happy to talk about your ACT requirements, not just ACT Marketing Automation, but anything else we can do to help you get more value from the investment you've already made in ACT. So thank you for your time, and we hope to speak soon.